the Lions have done it to them again. Silent sounds. No premiership hangover here.
39 points down. Brisbane do a job on the Dogs by 21 points. And this Brisbane team, they are never, ever beaten.
And the siren sounds. A record Q-class crowd. A mighty roar for the Lions. The gap at the Gabba is still substantial.
Across the goals. And Brisbane come to the MCG and do a big job on the Hawks by 33 points.
It feels like the night the Brisbane Premiership defence truly began.
The Brisbane Lions Fancast is back. I'm going to say halfway through the year, but it really is a little bit more than halfway through the year. It is the bye round, so we've got plenty to talk about. One thing we don't have to talk about is any sort of footy. No VFL, no AFL to chat about. A lot of the boys went down to Tassie, played a bit of golf, and hopefully a bit refreshed as we head into this game Saturday night at the Gabba against Port Adelaide. So I'm going to do a bit of a stock take halfway through the year during the bye. Got a few fan questions we're going to address. Definitely a few things that have been talking points that have sort of built up across the last couple of weeks. We'll have a look at the votes so far, thanks to Hop on Brewery Tours. And, plenty of crisp communication questions to get through as well. One thing I will say, though, is right now at our website, brisbanelionsfancast.com.au, you can get your hands on our merch. And if you use the code THANKYOU10, you get 10% off. So head along to that website, brisbanelionsfancast.com.au. Have a look at some of the merch. Hopefully get some more in the next couple of months as well. A few more designs. And use that code THANKYOU10. Patrick, how was your bye weekend? It was a bit of a flat weekend of footy. We'll get to tipping it a little bit later on, but I would imagine most people got 100%.
I think all the people that used their brain got 100%. I had a bit of a rough week. I've been under the weather this week, so not been a fun week for me. Lots of congestion and mucus and coughing. So
it is going
on the mend here
everywhere at the moment. Everyone is bloody sick.
Yeah, I know. I went out for one day and it's like, oh, here you go, have that. So, is what it is. But no, the footy was a bit hapless. In some ways fun, in some ways boring. But yeah, it was a round that happened and no one will remember it for much, except for the Bont. He'll probably remember it.
Yeah, that was probably the highlight of the weekend, was the Dogs and the Swans on the Friday night game of the round. The turf was absolutely cooked, but we got some really good footy. Both teams, big momentum swings across the whole game. So that was a bit of fun to watch. The rest of the round, not so much. Not so much at all. Are
you saying that Thursday night wasn't tremendously enjoyable to watch?
Yeah, it was. Yes. Was Port Adelaide really good? Was Carlton really bad? Was it a bit of both? I guess we'll find out this weekend just how good Port Adelaide were, because they're putting together some good footy over the last 5 or 6 weeks, and Kenny is holding on to his job. But having said that, they are losing, and losing big against some of the top teams. So if we're any good, we will find that out on Saturday and what we sort of dish up against Port Adelaide on Saturday night. The Lions, they sit second on the ladder, 10-4-1. Currently sitting 7th for both points for and against, so just sitting outside the much famed premiership window introduced by the couch. So we're knocking on the door, but sitting outside. But all in all, there has been some disappointing results. There's been some really good wins, and we'll have a chat about those a little bit later on as well. I think at the start of the year, coming off a shortened pre-season, a lot of players in for surgery, interruptions with the cyclone and all that sort of stuff, to sit here at the bye 10-4, you would have taken that every day of the week. So even Fague said as much, I don't know, maybe after round 6 or 7, whenever it was, he said he was pretty surprised at where we were sitting. We started the season off 5-0, and then, we definitely had a bit of a down patch, North Melbourne and Melbourne, And those two, I guess you could call them unlucky losses against Adelaide and the Giants. So all in all, heading into the bye with a big win against the Cats was much needed, but the bye was needed even more.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head there. It's like if you'd been offered this season, you're taking it with both hands. You know, a lot of people had a sliding ladder and don't know why. But yeah, you would take it and run, and hopefully they do take it and do run in the second half of the season. So, you know, a lot of more difficult games. Probably looked a bit more difficult at the start of the season, which is where certain teams would be. But yeah, Port Adelaide, an interesting one. I didn't think that they were great on Thursday. I think the Ken Hinkley and the Carr situation is sort of, I don't think that they'll change mid-season. I tend to agree with Corn on this, that I don't think that Carr would want to have like 4 or 5 games of just nothingness. He would want to kind of hit the ground running with a full preseason. So I think Kenny's probably largely pretty safe. Vossi's not.
No, he's not.
Although I think it's finally almost reached an element of critical mass where it's just like people are well aware that it's not really the coach. Is Vossi the greatest coach in the world? No. Is he a good coach? I'm still not sure. He strikes me as a bit of an old school coach, and yeah, that can work, but it hasn't been. So, but yeah, they're car crash with injuries all the time, Carlton. So I feel bad for him, but at the same time, you took the job at Carlton, so reap what you sow a bit.
Yeah, and they do love sacking coaches, and with Graham Wright just sort of floating around looking to make some changes, it'll be interesting to see what happens at that footy club over the next couple of months or at the end of the year. Let's have a quick look at our next sort of 5-6 weeks. Port obviously at home, then we have got the Blues down at Marvel Stadium on a Thursday night, and then the Dogs Friday night at the Gabba on the 18th of July, followed by the Q Clash, and then the Pies. So all of those games are going to be tough. They're all going to be tough. None more than Collingwood at the MCG at 7:30 on a Saturday night. That is going to be, I think that is going to be a game that the boys are going to set themselves for. Obviously, it is the last of the hoodoos, if you will. Collingwood at the G. Haven't won there since 2014 when I think Jono Freeman kicked a bag of 4 or whatever it was. But we've only played them there maybe 3 times during that period as well. So it's sort of a bit of a misnomer in that stage. But the run home is going to be tough. Swans and Dockers, and then the Hawks to finish things off. So there's no easy games in that. Probably the 2 easiest, if you will, are going to be the next fortnight in Port Adelaide and Carlton, in both bottom 8 teams. The rest are floating around. I mean, Sydney depends where they're at as well. Are floating around the 8, if not entrenched in the 8. So it is going to be a tough run home. We learned about that a couple of weeks ago, that statistically we've got the toughest run home. So last year after the bye, we absolutely blitzed it 9 in a row, including some very big wins against the Dogs, Port, St Kilda was a big one in there as well. But there was also some scrappy wins against Adelaide, St Kilda, West Coast along the way. But they were wins, and before we faltered against GWS and Collingwood. So if we can replicate anything like that in the back half of this year, we'll be doing all right.
Well, it seems kind of, we've been a very good side away from home in the first half of the season, and I think that it's going to flip. Our home form is going to be, largely the more important kettle of fish in the second half, because we've got, although we're playing some good teams, by my reckoning, Port, we've got Sydney, Bulldogs, Hawthorn, all at home, and they're ones that we've got to win. We've got to kind of bring back that fortressness of the Gabba, which has been kind of lacking a little bit in the beginning of the year. So, the away form's fine. I think we'll finish in the top 4. I don't think we'll finish second, because Geelong basically have to essentially show up to finish second. So that's going to be a bit of a pain. But I think it's going to be a fun remainder of the season. I like good games of football. I don't like games where we're going in there expecting to win by, hundreds of points, because I think that it creates a false economy where if you do that, then it's like, oh, hey, cool. Like, was that I don't know. Last year, belting Port Adelaide was far more fun than like belting North Melbourne.
Well, yeah.
In that year.
Of course.
And
they're
it's
a
like,
good team, and it was away from home and everything, yeah.
Yeah, but you would rather do that than just be like, okay, we're playing minnows and we're just like, because you either belt them and it's like, oh, that felt a bit dirty, or, oh, we didn't beat them as badly as we should have. Are we frauds? Is kind of the rhetoric that comes out of certain corners. But I like good teams playing good teams because I watch football to be entertained. So I would like to see good teams playing good teams. So I love the fixture going towards the end of the season.
Sure.
I think it's great.
It'll definitely prove to us and all those that do sort of have that fraud watch on us that we may be made for finals, we may not. It's maybe slipping away, and obviously injuries are going to be playing a big part in anyone's run home in the lead into September as well. So if we can keep the list healthy, then hopefully that will be pretty good. Another sort of micro update from Link McCarthy is that he is really pushing his case and will be available for selection most likely in the VFL by August. I'm going to find it very, very hard to find a spot for him, providing our list is healthy come September and in senior level. So unless, Kai Loman, Charlie, Cal Archie, and probably even Will McLaughlin would be in front of him, I would say.
Oh,
maybe.
I thought you were going to say unless one of them get I word.
Yes.
And I was going to stop you preemptively, get you to touch that palm tree behind you to, take away the bad voodoo of it all. So, no. Link McCarthy, it would be pretty cool.
It would be cool. All right. Speaking about our forward line, I guess I know you don't like to talk about this stuff, but we're in the bye, so we might as well have a chat about it while we're here. Obviously, Oscar Allen's going to be sitting out the rest of the year. It is looking more likely than unlikely at this stage that we'll be acquiring his services at the end of the year. 6-year deal on the table for him at around, I think it was about the 800 mark, give or take. Hawthorn apparently have dropped out at this stage, and I don't know if that's due to his injuries or just maybe they thought they weren't in the race at the end because we were far in front. It was either going to be us or West Coast. He's out for the rest of the year. He had that plantaris, and he's also had another operation on his knee. Now, Logan Morris has obviously come a long way in this second year. Like, him and Jasper Fletcher are probably the biggest risers on the list in terms of output consistently. You could probably even throw in Hugh McCluggage there as well, who's lifted another level as well. But we've also got Ty Gallup, and Eric Hipwood is on the list until 2029 is when he's contracted to, I believe. So Oscar Allen potentially coming into the fold. How do you feel about that at the bye with this injury that's happened again?
I like it. I think it's good. Because to me, a 6-year deal seems a little bit long, but
he's 26.
Yeah. I mean, I would have probably gone for a 4-year deal, but I'm not in charge of that. So
well, that's what I think that's what West Coast got in front of him, and he said, "No, I want longer." So I think in order to lure him, we did have to up it up to 6, maybe even longer. I mean, maybe a 5-year. And I don't know what the money that West Coast is offering him comparatively. I imagine they'd be shelling out for him, but. Obviously, we've got a history of players coming with injuries. I mean, Joe Dan played, 15 games in the 3 years prior to him coming across to us.
I think he played 4 games in the 2 years beforehand.
Yeah, it was something
it was
pretty poor. Link McCarthy, we've up until recently had a good run with. Tom Duday is probably the one that is not being the beneficiary of our much famed strength and conditioning team, who simply just hasn't had a go at it since he's come up from Adelaide. So other than that, we've had a pretty good run, and clearly we are backing ourselves in to do a similar thing with Oscar Allen. The other thing is we're probably going to ask him, hey, if you're coming across to us, that second ruck role is a non-negotiable. That's going to be part of it.
Yeah, well, covered it last week, where I think him taking the rest of the year off, I think puts him in better physical shape heading into next year than if he had limped to the end of the season and got the surgeries done then. So it's almost like he gets the surgery done and he's kind of just building for next year. And I would be loathed to think that we wouldn't have some kind of input or say in what he was going to do, providing that there's a trade well and truly on the table. If you've got our fitness coaches going, hey, maybe do this, or hey, try, don't do this. I feel like that's probably, I would expect that if I was Oscar Allen. But I think sometimes players that are injured for a substantial amount of time go two ways. Whenever Dan McStay is injured for Collingwood, he's the greatest fucking player ever, according to everybody. But, it feels like Oscar Allen has just been sort of, he's forgotten how good he is, a season a few years ago where him and Nick Larkey and the two bottom teams kicked a significant number of goals and I understand they've only got one bloke to kick goals, but the level of entries and stuff like that and people double, triple teaming him is just off the charts. So he will draw a crowd, and I think it'd be good for the team. Now, I also want to make it clear, I don't dislike talking about trade chat. I just don't like the trade madness, I don't like it all consuming. I'm never going to be a trade radio listener, and I always avoid Premier League transfer shit, and I avoid trade radio.
Yeah.
So, because I like our team, but that said, I'm not immune to wanting to kind of bolster it in certain ways. So, have you got any similar or opposing or different thoughts?
I guess my worry is that it is going to potentially stifle Ty Gallop. Because I think if he comes across, I think our forward line is then Hipwood, Logan Morris, and Oscar Allen. And then Ty Gallop is just sort of doomed in the twos. And he was mentioned in Fags' press conference after the Geelong game that, he's got high hopes for him, but he might be another player, and we've seen him, Ben Keys or others, Dev Robb at the moment, that are just forever stuck in the twos, that is potentially a very good or serviceable AFL player that just can't get a run of it because we just haven't got the spaces available. But if Oscar Allen's body continues to let him down, then I suppose there will be opportunities for Ty Gallop to come in. It's at this point where you look at that Eric Hipwood contract that we've given him and gone, yeah, that was too long. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really on the. I believe it wasn't a super amount of money, and you kind of look at it and go, well, you would rather have someone who has a point to prove, like Ty Gallop, waiting in the wings, because key position players is notoriously hard on the body. Hipwood's had a knee. He's also struggled with various injuries. And it makes you wonder, like last year, because he was clearly struggling with some sort of injury through towards grand final, the osteitis pubis. And you go, well, if we had an understudy that was suitable, could we have played that person, Or are we going, well, we'll wheel Eric Hipwood out because we've got no one else? So that's where kind of strength and depth works, I think, significantly well. So you're not in a situation where you go, well, Dan McStay's moved on. Gunston didn't work out, so we'll throw Darcy Gardner. We'll make him a forward. That wouldn't happen if you're in a situation with Oscar Allen, Hipwood, Morris, and Gallop. You're not kind of retrofitting players you've got to do other roles. You're going, okay, well, one of them will come out, Gallop will come in. So I don't think that it's that big of a deal. I think Logan Morris could be. He could be a player and a story that people project onto others. And I think he's a very exceptional case. I don't think that Ty Gallop's not good, but if people are expecting Ty Gallop to impact in the same way that Logan Morris has, I don't think that that's super fair on both him, both the club, and even on Logan Morris, because I think Logan Morris is exceptional. So, I think key forwards are generally under the impression, hey, it's going to take a few years to get going. We've seen, like Logan, there are a few exceptional cases, The generational players are coming more thick and fast, more frequently than normal. So, if I was Ty Gallup, I probably would try to hold my reins a little bit. Do you like that one?
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. And temper my expectations and not be too scared by it, because you'll get your opportunity. I'm sure you'll get your opportunity one way or another. So, plus, who knows? Maybe football will go to 5 talls in 3 years. For some reason, they'll change a rule, make ground balls spilt milk like in AFL 9s.
Maybe. I would hate to see that happen.
But I think, having players like Dev Rob, like guys that are your forever VFL guys, is good. Actually, good for the team.
Yeah.
And it is, because you did mention Ben Keys, and someone at some point did say, "I hope so and so doesn't become like another one of our Ben Keys." And I said, "Oh, hang on a second. You say like Ben Keys or one of the other ones. It's like, who are the actual other ones? Because we've got Hinge, but I don't think Hinge is making our team. Not ahead of Zorko, not ahead of Wilmot, not ahead of Coleman when he's fit. He would have been good at the beginning of last year when we didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
But you can't,
it's probably him and Wilmot would be fighting it out for a role.
Yeah, see, I'm picking. I think Wilmot is far less susceptible to defensive errors than Hinge. Hinge will take it on, but I think Wilmot's a better player with a far higher ceiling. But in terms of players that would walk into our first team, Keys probably would, but I don't think there's anyone else that would. That was one that we let go. So I think we've got a pretty good record with it, and it's good to see guys that we like. I like Jackson Pryor more than probably anybody. And, I don't begrudge that little shitbag running around for Essendon. So, I think that the one that got away is really amplified by what Ben Keys has done. And I don't think it's not like a systemic issue for us.
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so either. Speaking of tall forwards,
that was me just gunning down all your points. Sorry, dude.
No, that's fair enough. Speaking of tall forwards, I haven't watched it yet, but accordingly, Caro said that Sydney has been on the phone quite heavily to Joe Danaher to bring him out of retirement for next year. How's that make you feel?
Well, I heard he was in Portugal, so I don't know what phone they're calling, but not good. I like Joe Danaher, and
everyone loves Joe Danaher. I'd be very surprised if it happened, but if anyone's going to make it happen, it would be Sydney, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess you kind of look at it for him and go, well, what's the likelihood that I finish my career in a better way than what I did?
Yeah, true.
So I no comment. He's probably in Lisbon with like a beach and wearing like a conquistador hat, although that was technically the Spanish, so whatever. Cool.
Right. Well, we've already touched on 2 of them, Fletcher and Morris. Is there any other players this year that have surprised you in their elevated form? And secondary, is anyone that you are maybe disappointed we haven't seen more of and potentially have a role to play in the back half of the year? Your Shadow Brains, your Bruce Reveals. Connor McKenna is one that I thought we would have seen a little bit more of so far in 2025. But I suppose Levi has taken that spot to an extent. Any other names that you want to throw forward that have impressed you in 2025 so far?
Well, I think between the 2 of them, you said, Morris has been the one he's improved, and it's been easy to see. Fletcher's improved in like an understated way that, kind of if you're paying attention, you realise. McCluggage, the other one you mentioned as well, so you nailed it with those 3. I think the month of football that Fort's put together has been really good.
Yep.
Not unexpected, but also not expected. So it's kind of exactly how you kind of would have wanted it to be. In terms of Levi Ashcroft, I think that I too have fallen foul of the expectation thing where you go, well, you expect him to be he's not really sticking out like a sore thumb in a premiership team. So that can only be good.
Yeah.
Right? He doesn't look out of place. There's a few things that I would work on him in the off season with his kicking. He kicks a bit. We had Louis Taylor on the wheel. He kicks a bit like Louis Taylor at times.
Yeah.
Hangs the ball up. I want to see a few more darts. But, I mean, that takes time. He's a first-year player. So I think he's had probably a better year than I've given him credit for, I think. But on the whole, there's a little bit of drop-off from Cameron and Lohman, and that's kind of fitness and possibly age-related. I'm still iffy on Zorko a bit. I would still.
I don't know. I don't know what he's going to do to win you over.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah. I would still, if Kadeem Coleman was fit, I would still have Kadeem Coleman in the team ahead of Zorko. So that's just how I am. But I like our team. Hopefully we see more from Oscar.
Yeah, that's probably the other name, is someone that's been not disappointing, but I guess we would hope to see a step up from Big O, and obviously that hasn't happened. And clearly that degenerative, and that is the word that Fags used in that presser, it is a degenerative back issue. So that is playing a part, and it means that we are looking to the future of our ruck stocks, obviously, with Sam Draper and Riley O'Brien. So that is going to be something to keep an eye on moving forward as well.
The only other player with significant upward tick in performance, regrettably, was Jack Payne.
Yeah.
So a bit of a piss of that one, but credit where credit's due, because I think he was probably the most consistent of our key backs, I would say.
Yeah, and Harris has had a real up and down year.
Yeah, he's fluctuated a bit, and Froggy's been consistent, but I just think Payne has been consistently more impactful. His intercept numbers have been through the roof and things like that. So, on the whole, it kind of goes with the territory. You're going, well, you're set second at the bye late, late bye, and the team are kind of just ticking along. So I can't have any real complaints.
Zach Bailey's also probably lifted his output quite significantly this year as well. He did have, he was good against the Cats, but before that, a couple of quieter weeks, but started the year really strongly. He's had a probably career best year so far, arguably. Cam Rayner started slow, but his last month or so has been really good as well. So those two, they're pretty emblematic of the team as a whole. So if it's a case of if those two are playing well, then generally the team's playing well. One thing that has been good is that Lockie Neal has had a pretty down year by his lofty standards, and I don't know if that's off the back of that foot issue he was carrying at the back end of last year, or if it is just a case of just sharing the workload in that midfield and players like Ashcroft stepping up. Dunkley's having a really good year, and of course McCluggage has. He would be leading the BNF at this point, I would imagine. Hugh McCluggage, pretty comfortably as well, and his tackling numbers, I know I've spoken about on the show before. That's probably the most impressive thing from Hugh. Like, his ball use is always generally really, really good. His ability to find space, and just the way he can apply pressure and work his opponent off the ball to give him that extra space. But then the tackling has just come along so far.
Yeah, Hugh's spatial awareness is kind of, I think, his superpower, I guess. His knowledge of where he is. I would also like to give a shout out to Noah Ainsworth.
Yeah, big time.
I think he's been excellent. And I think in terms of minutes to good minutes ratio, Starcevic.
Yeah,
he's only played like 2 games there. He's been unreal in both of them. So hard to. It's you said it so well last week, where you're like, well, he's coming back after a long time. You're not expecting him to be an A-grade defender, and it's just like, will you fit in my pocket, please, Dangerfield, on your 3,500th game? Yes, please. So. But yeah, Noah Ainsworth is really, we needed him big when Starcevic went out at the beginning of the year. And it gives us 2 really good weapons, because a lot of teams do have multiple annoying, and we're proponents of it too, annoying small forwards. So, and they're where teams come alive in September. So it's good to have multiple stoppers. So
definitely, and that's probably an area that has probably been the most disappointing for us so far in 2025 is those small forwards. Is obviously Charlie Cameron is well down on any sort of form he's shown in the last 6 years. Lohman, great against the Cats. The first game, he's really shown what we know he's capable of, especially since that final series last year. And even Archie is down a little bit on that finals form from last year as well. So if we can get those guys to lift in the back half of the year, that's really going to help.
Yeah, I think the whole team is liable to peak towards finals, but I think these big games will be good for the team because surely they would want to play good teams, right? I don't know.
Yes,
I feel like they're sort of like, oh yeah, cool. This will be playing a good team. We've got to really test ourselves. I think I'm chopping in and out there. We've really got to test ourselves, but surely that would be what you want to do. It's always, even when you're playing like social whatever, you're like, oh, we're playing that team. We're going to belt them by 15 goals. Why? Just stay home for the day.
And it seems to have been, whether it's subconscious or conscious or whatever, but we have seemed to lift for the bigger games, the Hawks, the Dogs and the Cats earlier in the year. Obviously the Cats very recently. Even the Crows, we know that's a top 4 team, potentially a top 4 team.
Gold Coast as well.
Yeah, and we lifted for those. And it's the games against North, Melbourne, GWS. I think we went in fairly heavy favourites for that one as well. Richmond, West Coast. Those are the ones where we've looked pretty flat-footed, and managed to walk away with some wins, but also cop some losses that we probably deserved along the way, and that draw against the Roos down in Tassie.
Yeah, we'll be all right. We'll win some games. We probably won't win all of them, but that's okay. I don't mind. We've shown that we can win, and I'm still confident. I've been saying it for years. Our best football is still the best football.
Yeah, and I think we got a good look at that against the Cats, especially in that third quarter a couple of Fridays ago. So on the back of that, the highest point so far of this year and the lowest point, you can put that in as best win and worst loss, or highest point, lowest point for 2025. It's hard to go past that last win against the Cats down at GMHBA for me, but the Suns and the Hawks were good wins as well. I think the Hawks is a really good one, at the MCG, one of those hoodoos, and there was some pretty good footy in there.
Also, a little shout out to the second half against the Bulldogs. That was ballistic.
Yeah.
It was insane, that second half against the Dogs. Lowest point for me is probably, possibly the Jack Payne injury or the repeat. Like the Jack Payne one and then the repeat ACLs. Like the Link McCarthy thing was just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But in a footballing sense, most people will say the Collingwood game, but I would probably say the Melbourne game, because I just think we got completely out-coached and out-systemed by a person who I don't think is a very good coach in Simon Goodwin. So that was a frustrating one for me. I didn't like it at all. It can go in the bin and keep going.
Yeah, the North draw was pretty bad as well, and we were lucky to scrape a draw out of that. Because they pissed away so many opportunities in front of goal across the whole game. And the GWS loss, combined with that Jack Payne injury, was pretty bad as well. Probably because it was off the back of that Adelaide loss as well, so it probably made it feel a bit worse than it was. So, yeah, definitely ebbs and flows in this season so far.
Yeah, it's sort of, they're living in the memory. I got to say, round 1 win against Sydney and the early win against Geelong were both pretty clutch as well, because, we didn't know what Sydney were going to be this year at that point in time. And, to come back from a fair way behind against Geelong to beat them early on in the year. And don't forget, at that time, Geelong had blitzed 2 teams and we basically limped over the line, and not many people, including yourself, didn't give us a chance. So,
yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So there's been some really good wins. Really good wins.
Hopefully,
I think
there's more to talk about at the, at the pre-finals bye if we're sitting here.
Yeah. Oh well, we'll just have to do a watch along of bloody Essendon and the Gold Coast.
Yeah, something like that. Let's have a look at the votes so far for hobandbrewtours.com.au. Book yourself a half for a full-day tour with Matt and Jocelyn and the rest of the team there across Brisbane and the Gold Coast. They're going to be coming along to the Bulldogs game in a couple of weeks' time. Looking forward to that. So we'll go out top 10. Cam Rayner is sitting on 6 votes in 10th place at the moment. Zach Bailey is sitting on 8 votes. Eric Hipwood with a couple of big games earlier in the year. He's on 9 votes, sitting at 8th. Tied for 6th or 7th, whatever it is. Logan Morris and Noah Answorth, 2 of the players we've spoken about so far. Harris Andrews is tied with Lockie Neal for equal 4th on 13 votes.
So the Captain's Club.
The Captain's Club, but it shows that they've had some really good games. And then equally some really quiet games as well. Will Ashcroft sitting in 3rd on 16, Josh Dunkley in 2nd on 18, and tearaway leader at the moment, Hugh McCluggage, 23 votes, which will come as no surprise to anyone, I would have thought.
Love that. It's a good spread. It's a good spread. And I think it's pretty reflective. There's maybe a few that are a little bit... Jasper's been pretty good. Probably hasn't warranted enough votes at times. Logan Morris as well, although...
Actually, no. Jasper Fletcher should be in that top 10. Let's just have a quick count here. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 votes. So he's actually sitting equal 3rd with Will Ashcroft.
Oh, that's, yeah. Those two guys. I was sort of sitting there going, like, hold on, was it a good idea to give... And I'm not asking any aspersions on you, but give me the numbers. I'm the one with the calculator.
That's true.
Like that's surely it's a role built for me.
Well, I can share the spreadsheet with you.
My next question would be: is it a Google Docs or is it a Excel spreadsheet?
It is a Google Sheets.
Nah, that can go.
Okay.
I only operate on Excel.
All right, fair enough. Well, there's your top 10. Top 11 now, I guess, as well, because I've neglected Jasper Fletcher like an idiot, so he's sandwiched in there, equal 3rd with Will Ashcroft. Starcevich has got some votes in there. Jack Payne has got a couple along the way. Wilmot, Archie, Darcy Gardner, Berry. They've all received votes along the way, but nothing, probably less than 5 for all of those guys. So, yeah, there's the leaderboard.
Sam Day got a vote, didn't he?
Yes. Yeah, you gave him one against GWS.
Is there anyone else that didn't get a vote? Maybe Fort probably hasn't got a vote.
Ford hasn't. Charlie Cameron hasn't got a vote. There's players that haven't got a vote. Levi Ashcroft's got one. Yeah. No, Lohman got a vote against Essendon from me.
Yeah, fair. Essendon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he kicked like 2 goals, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was the first game he actually sort of did something. So we're like, let's give the man a vote.
Hold on, you, not we.
That's true.
I'm not giving him out like confetti. Mine are a hard thought, hard-earned thirst. Needs a big, cold vote.
All right, let's have a quick look at tipping as well for the year. Like I said, most people would have got the 6 from 6 last week.
Now, you said most people would get them all. And if not for a swap with about 40 seconds before the bounce, I've gone again. Man. There we go. If not for a swap with about 40 seconds before the bounce in the Swannies and Bulldogs game, I would have been not one of those people. But as it was, all 7.
All right, well, if you're watching us on YouTube and then there's freezing, don't worry about it. So let's just go through the tips here. So this coming week, we've got a full game of 9 rounds. North and the Bulldogs to kick things off Thursday night at Marvel Stadium. Bulldogs by as much as I think they can win by here. I'll go 51 points.
See, it's funny you say that because my margins have been insane this year. But in the last 2 weeks, I've only had a diff of 10.
Sure.
And I swapped my margin my Port Adelaide margin from 60 to 40, and I called myself out for being a coward, and it ultimately made no difference because it was 50. So, yes, Western Bulldogs by a bit.
Yep.
By a bit.
Collingwood to beat Carlton, Giants to beat the Eagles, Suns to beat Essendon down at Marvel.
The Cats will slaughter.
Yes, Cats to beat the Tigers, Brisbane to beat Port Adelaide, Hawthorn to beat St Kilda, Adelaide to beat Melbourne.
And then you've skipped the 50-50.
Yeah. Having a look at it at the moment, we're recording this at 1:45 on a Monday afternoon. Sydney are pretty heavy favourites to beat Fremantle, and I just don't believe that to be true. It is at the SCG. Swans have got a few players back, but I'm going to back the Dockers in because they've won, 7 in a row?
I haven't looked how many they've won, but I'm assuming it's quite a few. That's your 50-50. I also can see a Kilda job, so but I'm not going that far.
Sure.
So where are you sitting in the standings, out of curiosity?
I am sitting down at 39th.
Beautiful.
39th out of... How many have we got now? League here. 107.
That's pretty good. Pretty good. Oh, for fuck's... Sorry. I keep, do you have this thing where you look at the app on your phone and you go to click on the competition and then it spawns in an ad where the button is and you keep creating new competition? Because that's what I do all the time. Maybe I'm actually just... and also, the thing that's most annoying about that is that it's an advert for the grand final coming up this year, and it has the two Dacos brothers in it. Not the reigning premiers, because I'm sure the Dacos brothers got all their ad banners a year before. It's like, promote the team that won the flag, not the team that... And also, these sappy Collingwood thought pieces that have been coming out the last week. Holy moly, they're just trying to condition people. I'm sitting 50th, which doesn't sound great, but given that I was in 86th about 6 weeks ago, a month ago, I feel like... Sorry?
He's coming home strong.
Yes. When I started not tipping like an absolute muppet. So, yeah, I'm getting there.
Well, a big shout out to Jimothy, or Jim, who is sitting first in our league at the moment with 98 at the moment, in a margin of 389, tied with someone by the name of Joe Danaher, also sitting on 98. Margin's a little bit blown out there. So those guys are currently in the lead. 2025 lines, Andrew, Josh, and Dez are running at the top 5.
Yeah, I'm coming home with a rocket, so watch out, everybody.
All right.
Watch out.
Let's get into some questions. Thanks to Chris Communications, chriscoms.co, giving you free Brisbane Lions Fancast stickers and giving you the best marketing you could possibly ask for. Check him out, chriscoms.co. First one is from Russell, a bit tongue-in-cheek here. Who in the club would be brave or silly enough to write the hoodoo on the whiteboard? The club hasn't won consecutive premierships since 2002 and 2003. Another hoodoo to break there.
Who would be the one to do it?
Probably Zorko.
It's the sort of thing that I reckon Jonathan Brown would do as he's going in. Like, he'd come in and he'd just be like, right, put this one up, see if they can do it. And he'd be like, yeah, cool. Either that or I could see it being like a Wilmot thing.
Yeah. Just
think of who's the littlest shits in the team, and Zorko's older than that, so it's less endearing if he does it.
Miller time. What do we do with Eric? I want to see him dominate, but I guess he's not really that guy. No, he's not really that guy. Never has been that guy. He has had an interrupted season. He got off to a slow start. He had the coming back from the OP. Had a couple of really good games. Obviously, that 5-goal game against the Dogs, and then he had like a 2 or 3 or 4 week period where he played really, really well. Then he got thrown into backup ruck, and then he got thrown into centre half back, and has not really had a bit of consistency in the last 10 weeks. So hopefully we will see that change, and he can continue to do that.
He'll be all right. he'll kick some goals in the back end of the year, and he's not a dominator, but he doesn't need to be.
Jensen, with the game against Port Adelaide, or maybe even moving forward, do you swap in Oscar McInerney for Sam Day and run the two rucks and have Ford as the forward ruck, second ruck option?
No. One word answer, no.
Yeah, no, I'm probably with you there. It's an interesting point because, as you said, Darcy Ford has put together a really good month of footy and is going to be unlucky to get dropped when that day does come, and that day might be this Thursday when they announce the team.
I would be inclined to wait until Henry Smith is back in 2 weeks to make the change. I know I said that I would like to see Oscar ruck after the bye, and I still stand by that, but if they're going to be cautious with it, you don't want to be losing two of them or one of them, at this point in time. So if they stuck with Fort for the next 2 weeks, I would not be surprised.
Sure. He's done nothing to get dropped other than Oscar McInerney's fit and available, potentially.
Yeah, but no, I don't think it'd be...
All right. Keep in Lisden. Keep in Lisden is on Instagram there. What are your thoughts on Sam Draper and the Oscar Allen trade rumours? If you had to pick one out of the two to come to the Lions, who would you pick and how would they fit and improve the team? We've sort of already spoken about Oscar Allen and how he may fit into the team. The ruck situation is a bit different. We've been pretty loud about the fact that we are looking at the likes of Sam Draper and Riley O'Brien, and I guess that's due to the longevity is Oscar as our number one ruck, and he's 31, Darcy Fort's 32. We won't know anymore until Henry Smith gets some footy under his belt.
I think they're the two gaps in the team. The Oscar Allen one, you're looking at it going, well, how long do we expect? I mean, no one really thinks Sam Day is all that. But the ruck thing is more of we need to bridge the gap between where our guys are if they're going to drop off, and then where Henry Smith might turn up. And he might not. There's plenty of stories of footballers that are like, he's going to be really good. And then it's like, nah.
Especially ruckman. You just never know.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're definitely the two gaps. I mean, I don't love Sam Draper's shtick. It doesn't, if he came to the club like without a mullet and a mustache, I'd be like, yeah, cool. Like, yeah, it's all right. Which is not saying that like that's indicative of a person, and I can't be the style guide on what anyone thinks because look at me. But sometimes you just someone gives off their impression very clearly of what they are, and it's also backed up by the way they play footy, the way they interact with people, the way they behave off the field. It all and to be honest, before Joe came, and I know we talked about this, I was very skeptical about Joe until I saw him give an interview where he came off sounding like a normal person. So, whereas Draper doesn't really sound like a normal person when he talks on podcasts. So, he comes across as like a bit of a little shitbag. So, I think both of them can add value to the team, but I also wouldn't really want to break the bank for either of them or both of them.
Yeah.
So,
I think if gun to the head, if I had to choose a role that was in more desperate need of replacing, it probably would be the ruck at this stage, simply due to the fact that, I raised the questions before of like, well, we've got 4 tall forwards in Oscar Allen, Eric Hipwood, Logan Morris and Ty Gallup that can't fit into 3 positions. So that area of the ground, if you will, is slightly more covered than the future of our ruck stock. So, yeah, it's interesting when you think about it that way.
But yeah, definitely the 2 key areas. So
yeah. And Giuseppe, and I have told him that I'm going to lightly roast him for his wording of it, because he clearly watches NBA or American sports. He says, is Levi your rookie of the year so far? And who is his closest competition?
Like our rookie of the year at the Lions, or
no, just is he going to win the Rising Star? Yes, he's called it rookie of the year.
The Japanese Rising Sun, as I called it about 2 years ago. The Rising Sun. The rising star. Well, it's kind of between him and that guy from Geelong who's like 35 years old, right?
Connor O'Sullivan. I think he's a good shout. I think Murphy Reid from Freo is in with a shot, and Harvey Langford from the D's, I think, are probably the top 5 with Levi thrown in there. I don't think that Levi is probably leading the pack. I think reputation alone will put him towards the pointy end. But I think Harvey Langford from Melbourne's probably had a better year.
I would say like Levi hasn't really had a breakout game, same way that definitely Reid has. I don't really. I would rather like shove pencils in my eyes than watch Melbourne games recreationally, so I can't really say much about Langford. Langdon?
Langford.
Why do this? Why?
But I do think Colin O'Sullivan is probably the most impressive, if I'm honest, as a key position back to come in year 1. He's a bit older, obviously, but
Yeah, but to me that speaks to the fallibility of the system. Like I don't think Kyle Lohmann should have been in there last year. Yeah. I think it should be first or second year players, not an age bracket with a certain caveat of number of games. So, because I just think that it's a bit different. Like, think back to you or me at 18 versus at 20 or 21. You grow up pretty quick in that amount of time. So, and that probably is what enables him to do that job as a key position player, which is why he wasn't doing it in his first or second year, because they were like, no, not ready.
Yeah.
And then they're like, you're ready. So I still think Levi's having a sneaky good year, but he hasn't had like a game that, like a wow game, I don't think, which is hard to do because we heard Fags in his press conference say he wants to play inside, but he's got to earn that right, and he's got to learn to play in other positions because it's kind of surplus to requirement at the moment.
Yeah.
Which is totally understandable. So get to work. But I'm sure if you looked at things like averages or disposals or inside 50s or whatever, all sort of statistical jargon, he'd be right up there for sure.
Yeah, no, his numbers check out, and the numbers of just a consistent, fairly good footballer without, lighting it up. They're probably similar to the numbers that, Jared Berry would have had in his first couple of years as well. I guess it's just, slotting into a premiership midfield is hard to do. Dev Rob is an AFL player that can't do it, and Levi's managed to do it. So he's been able to slot into a premiership team, make a spot his own. So there's something to be said for that alone. But whether he's leading the race for the rising star, I think there's a few in competition for that one.
I don't think it's overly important, the rising star for him. It's like his team at this point in his career is far more valuable, and it's the sort of thing where if you looked at it at the beginning of the year and you said, well, is Dev Rob a better player at their current state? Probably, maybe, but also, why would you waste that list spot or that position in the team when you can fast track the development of a player who, there were questions around his work rate, there are questions around his discipline, there were questions around his desperate effort. Desperate defensive efforts. Not a stat. Make a stat for that. I'd love it. And to enable him to work on that whilst, that's perfect. That's why you play him ahead of some of the fringe players that don't have a lot of longevity in the team. So he'll be my rookie of the year.
Speaking of list spots,
not playing one of those halfback, Sheasel,
there you go,
Dacos first years. So he's having to earn every possession, playing on good wingers in the hardest position in football. So
there you go. All right, speaking of list spots, the 4 main players of our best 22, best 23 that have contracts to run out at the end of the year. 2 of them are fairly obvious in Starcevic and Archie, and I would imagine...
Oh, I was thinking Frog and Zorko.
Well, those are the 2 obvious, like the other obvious ones. I don't think they're in danger of going elsewhere. It's going to be a case of do the club want to give them another year? Do they want to go on another year? All that sort of stuff. But the two that I'm sure we all want to hold on to, if it all works out, is Kalachi and Brandon Starcevic. So, and there's every chance with the bye just happening that we'll get an announcement at some point this week that one or both or neither of them have signed on, but this is generally the time where those things do happen.
Yeah, they're both being tempted by Western Australia.
I don't know about Kalachi, about Western Australia, but definitely Stars. I'm sure West Coast would throw some money.
Kalachi seems like it seems a bit storm in a teacup. He's got a young family, and so there's a bit of. I mean, you can speak and attest to this. I can't. Upping and moving a family seems like an absolute pain in the hole. So
yeah, it would be.
I wouldn't want to do it, particularly if it's sort of like, well, I could make 5% more money there. Like, is anyone really going to break the bank for Calamachi? I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but I don't think that they will.
No, I don't think so. I think he'll probably get offered some, longer, maybe 4 or 5 year deals, and maybe we're only prepared to offer him 2 or 3. It depends. It really depends. I think he's more likely than Starcevic at this stage to sign on. Having said that, I think Stars will probably sign on as well, maybe a 2-year deal.
Well, Craig Starcevic signed on as well to maintain being the coach of the AFLW, so the family ties are still there. It kind of, you wonder, like, why would they want to? Because, I think everyone was looking for Starcevic's body language when he came back into the team after his concussion to see if he looked like it was just a job.
Yeah.
Or whether he was going through the motions. And it became abundantly clear he was not. He was really enjoying it. I would hope both. I would assume the club was pushing quite hard whilst he was off. And I think the way the club treated that situation should be indicative of what their, the way their player management is and should be, which I think is a positive. It's always kind of been a positive.
Yep.
In recency. So I would be surprised if both of them weren't at the club next year.
And in terms of Zorko and Frog, I think Frog, it really depends on what happens with Tom Doedee. If Tom Doedee suddenly plays, the last 10 games of the year and is absolutely flying, then might come the time for Frog to finally not earn a 1-year deal, but there's every chance he'd get another 1-year deal as well. He's still, he's not old, like he's early 30s rather than, mid 30s, so there's definitely the chance for him, and he could go back to playing VFL and playing a senior role there and development and all that sort of stuff. Zorko, Kitty might, Kitty's form might sort of directly impact that as well.
I think the two of those, if they want to go again, it's up to them.
Yeah.
But, let's say forward thinking we win the premiership, I could easily see both of them retiring. So it wouldn't surprise me either way. And I think it's basically up to them.
You don't think, I reckon Zorko would definitely be tempted by the opportunity of a three-peat, especially if Oscar Allen's coming into the club and maybe another ruckman or something like that, because there's still going to be a list that's going to contend. So maybe.
Yeah. I think let's put it this way. So the players that won 2 premierships in the three-peat era at the beginning of whenever, 2000s. You have to forgive my brain. It's a bit foggy at the moment. No one knows who won 2 and who won 3, really.
Yeah.
Like, there are plenty of people. I think Daniel Bradshaw won 2, not 3, but he's still part of the 3. So I think you can get away with winning 2, and if you're part of a 3, no one gives a shit. So you'll be part of what that is, even if Zorko and Leicester were to go out, say, with a medallion around their neck and then see the team win the next year. They're not a part of it. Like, fucking Reece Matheson's in the club rooms last year. So, are you telling me they're not going to have Zorko and Leicester running around the year after if they're going to, yeah.
True.
So that's my thought. If they want to go on far be it from me to tell them that they can't, and far be it from anyone to tell them that they can't.
All right, well, let's wrap that up and have a quick chat about Port Adelaide, because that game is coming up this Saturday, 7:35 at the Gabba. Port coming off a big win against Carlton. Sydney got them the week before. As I said, they've been up and down. They've been absolutely slaughtered by, the Dogs absolutely killed them. Collingwood killed them. Geelong have killed them. They've lost big to some good teams, but they've also had some pretty important wins, the Giants and others along the way as well. So they beat Hawthorn as well earlier on in the year. So they are up and down, tough to get a good read on. One thing for sure is that Mitch Georgiades is playing some bloody good footy at the moment.
The hamburger man is pretty hot. So don't love that.
Do you give that role straight to Harris Andrews?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah, I reckon. Who else have they got forward of the ball? I don't think Lord is playing much.
They've got that.
It's amazing how
Vicentini's played a couple of games in a row as a second ruck forward, but he's not up to it yet.
Yeah, he's got a very cool name, Dante Vicentini. He's got a brother as well that's got also an equally as cool. They sound like mobsters.
Yeah,
which is probably
Vigo Vicentini. Yeah.
Vigo Vicentini. Yeah. There was a part of me that was like, that's not a suspension, but I hope it is. When Saad tried to go through him. So, Saad didn't try to go through him. Saad didn't realize he was there. So, give it to Harris. It's probably another one of those situations where we can actually afford to not change the back line a tremendous amount.
Yep.
To bring Gardner back in, because you don't really need to. So you could easily see the team not changing, with the exception of McLaughlin and Calamachi coming back in. So,
and do you give Calamachi a role in Connor Rosie? I would be.
Thinking. Possibly. It depends on who you trust at stoppage as much. So, because Rosie does tend to hit the stoppage rather than flitting and waiting like Whitfield sort of ordinarily would. So, could be Charlie Cameron with just a bit more like robustness. So, one of them for sure.
Yeah. Other than that, midfield matchups, you would be sending Dunkley to Zach Butters, I would imagine. That's how I'm going to read that. Or
I would say so. At the same time, there was some pretty funny stuff going on with Chincotta and Adam Chera. I remember having someone try to tell me that Adam Chera was an improved Josh Dunkley.
Sure.
Fancy that. Good chat.
I don't know saying that sort of ludicrous stuff, but whatever. Good for them.
Insanity. So, send Dunkley to Butters, make him work both ways. I think their speed and burst out of midfield is always going to be scary, but I suppose taking Rosie out of that, putting him to halfback can kind of change it a little bit. Willem Drew will probably try to go to McCluggage if he knows what's good for him.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing is just watch the Hornet coming out of the goal square, a bit like Cam Rayner for us.
Yeah.
It's hard to kind of deal with that burst.
He did get subbed last week, tactical apparently. So I don't know if he's carrying something or that's just what happened.
I feel like he's kind of the sort of bloke that's always carrying something. So I think he had a bit of ice on maybe on his calf or on his hammy or whatever. But we got to keep an eye on the Hornet. Jace Burgoyne as well, good user of the ball. So
yeah, definitely.
Port Adelaide aren't a bad team. They're just lacking in certain areas, and like Asava and Aaliyah and Zerk Thatcher are playing better football than probably
Sava's
they
had
have in
a couple of really good weeks.
Yeah, so I think that's a pretty good matchup for our tools. If we can stick them and pin them in certain areas, then it'll, Zerk Thatcher and Logan Morris, it's not a bad matchup sounding to me. And if you can get I think probably Day will try to get to Radaglia with Eric and Aaliyah and Zerk Thatcher and Morris, but knowing that it'll probably be entirely different. So, matchups are fun.
And Willie Rioli, are you sending Noah or Starcevic to him?
Do you go the velvet glove or the iron gauntlet, which is
the other will probably get Pal Pepper. I reckon. I think both either matchup would be fine with me. I don't really mind. Willie Rioli is playing some good footy. He always does. He tends to bob up with a goal or two against us as well. So I think you've got the opportunity along the way of starting with a matchup, and if it's not working, you can swap it around.
I reckon probably Starcevic on Sam Palpepper just so he can keep an eye on him.
Just a couple of battle of the baldies.
Yeah. I mean, when's the last time we've seen a good bald off?
It's been a minute.
I'm trying to think, honestly, because Chincotta is bald. Max Gawn is also bald. Jones from St Kilda.
Oh, yeah.
He's bring back maybe I should now.
You can't be making too many promises with your hair this season, mate.
Yeah, I know. I can't also claim to be bald and cornrowed at the same time. That's impossible. So, and plus, I think if I go bald, my hair might not ever grow back. So, let's stop talking about my hair, please. Even though I brought it up. I think
we should win this game. I'm not overly worried about Port Adelaide. Their bottom six is there is a drop off in their bottom six players, so I think we should be able to handle them. Georgiades though is obviously the worry because he's playing some really, really good footy in the last couple of weeks. He's kicked 12 goals in the last couple of weeks, so I wouldn't be surprised if Froggy gets that job at some point, or Dizzy Gardner if he's in the lineup. But yeah, it makes sense that Harris will get first crack at him for sure.
What did you think of old mate with one leg?
Yeah,
Liddy.
Lenny or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
I don't think of him.
Yeah, it was, I don't know, one of those things you're like, wow, look, he's got one leg. So just do both. Did he have to manually cut the leg off?
I've got no idea how that thing works. I know there's been a few articles about the story of the leg sleeve and how and why and all that sort of stuff, but I haven't really bothered to look into it because I don't particularly like Port Adelaide or thinking about them.
Yeah, it's just point of difference.
Yeah, I know, it's hugely popular in the NBA.
Yeah, they do that with their arms.
They do it with both, especially the WNBA. There's that many leg sleeves rolling around, and I think it's aesthetics more than anything.
Oh,
yeah, it's strange.
Well, fair enough. Is it because of I know it's for him. It's because he got some leg. Could it be horrible tattoos?
Could be.
You never know. Yeah.
All right.
I don't think it is for this. But
it'll be good to have some footy back. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully my brain will be by the time. So, good fun. We like a win against Port, so let's keep that rolling.
I'm just going to have a quick look at the VFL here as well.
I'm assuming they will not be playing Port Adelaide.
No, we got a tough game against the Sharks at Brighton Homes Arena. That will also be on the Saturday at 12 o'clock. So midday Saturday game there as well against Southport. That'll be a tough match. Southport currently sitting third on the VFL ladder. We're in fifth. So back-to-back wins for us in the twos, but we are playing a standalone VFL team that has had some big wins so far this year. So that'll be a tough game.
Yeah, the Sharkies. So, I mean, hopefully they'll play well. They'll probably have a good ruckman playing for them, and we will. So, speaking of lower grade football, marginally, but let's go further down. Did you see that mark?
Yes.
Did you see the goal?
The midair sort of looked like it was going to be a specky and then wasn't.
Yeah, the one where he kind of got the lift and then fell backwards and then threw a boot at it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So local footy really showing up for everyone. So mark of the year and goal of the year, same weekend at local grade. So showing them how to do it and loved every moment of it. So beautiful.
All right.
Thought I'd end on a high with that.
Before we go, quickly, and I'm sure by the time that people are listening to this or watching this, the results will be in. But how many weeks for Tom Lynch for you?
Oh, I don't know, probably 4, 5, 4. 4. I reckon 4 because he didn't really make all that much impact, did he?
That's about as much impact as you can get these days. I'm thinking
But he
closer
didn't,
to 6.
The guy's not dead.
No, he's not dead.
He didn't go off right. He just sort of, he kind of got him with like this part of his arm. So to me, it's like high impact, not severe. So 4.
Be interesting.
Stupid.
Amazingly stupid, but that's Tom Lynch, so.
Yeah. I don't know. A bit like you with the one-legged fella. I don't really think about Tom Lynch so much so that I almost called him Josh Lynch just then. So. Geez. Also, so I saw some highlights the other week of Birchall playing for us, and I'm like, what's with the number 14 being exclusively occupied by like old dudes on our team? We've had Josh Walker, who looked about 75, even though he wasn't. Birchall, and now Day.
Yep.
Who's next? Sign me up. I will wear that Guernsey. I will be the not Thierry Henry of the Lions in the 14 shirt. So, no, that's all I got to say about that.
Fair enough. All right. Well, you never know. You might get the call up if the 14.
I'm very sure I won't. But if I do, I will exclusively. I have to. It'd be written in that I have to wear that number.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week after a game against Port Adelaide. Hopefully, we'll be back on the start of a 9-game winning streak, which would be pretty nice.
9-game winning streak.
Nah, more actually.
I don't want to do that maths because I feel like that runs out at exactly the wrong time.
Yeah, it probably does.
You dickhead. I'm gonna go and blow some medicine, and hopefully next week I feel better. So
lovely. See you then.